Welcome, curious listeners, to another episode of Sexual Chemistry by Skoob. I'm your host, Zoya Sinclair, and today we're diving deep into one of the most misunderstood aspects of human sexuality: female ejaculation, orgasm, and the complex world of feminine pleasure. What you're about to hear might challenge everything you think you know about female sexuality. We'll separate fact from fiction, explore the fascinating anatomy behind pleasure, and uncover truths that even medical professionals debate. So settle in, because we're about to embark on an educational journey that's both scientifically rigorous and deeply human. Let's start with a fundamental confusion that plagues discussions about sexuality: the difference between ejaculation and orgasm. Most people think these are the same thing, but here's where it gets fascinating. They're actually completely separate physiological processes. Even for cisgender men, it's entirely possible to experience an orgasm without ejaculation. Mind-blowing, right? This isn't some mystical concept. It's a trainable skill that requires patience and dedication. The Taoist tradition has explored this for centuries, with practitioners learning to achieve multiple orgasms without experiencing that typical refractory period, saving ejaculation for the grand finale. If you're intrigued by this concept, I highly recommend checking out Mantak Chia's The Multi-Orgasmic Man, which details the practice of seminal retention. But here's the kicker. This separation of orgasm and ejaculation isn't just a male phenomenon. When we talk about vaginal ejaculation, often called squirting, we're discussing the forceful expulsion of fluid from the vulva during sexual activity. And here's the crucial part. This can happen with an orgasm, without an orgasm, or completely independently of any climactic experience. The fluid itself is fascinating. It originates from the Skene's gland, and if you've ever experienced or witnessed this phenomenon, you'll know immediately that it's not urine. While trace amounts of urine might be present simply because everything exits through the same route, the urethra, the fluid itself is distinctly different. It's typically milky, slick, completely odorless, and has a slightly sweet taste. For some people, ejaculation happens naturally without any conscious effort. For others, it requires specific, intentional stimulation of the G-spot area. The sensations vary dramatically. Some describe it as an overflowing feeling, like a cup spilling over with water, while others experience it as a series of distinct spurts. Now let's talk about something that will revolutionize how you think about female pleasure. The clitoris is not just that small button you can see. Oh no, my friends, we are talking about an iceberg situation here. What you see is just the tip. The clitoris is the primary source of arousal leading to orgasm for most women, not the vaginal canal. This is a game changer for understanding female sexuality. While the vagina is optimally designed to provide the friction and sensation that leads to male orgasm, for women, the clitoris and its surrounding areas function as the equivalent to the male penis in terms of sensitivity and sexual pleasure. Here's where it gets really interesting. The clitoris shares remarkable similarities with the penis at a structural level. Both are comprised primarily of erectile tissue, designed to engorge and become dramatically more sensitive when aroused. When a woman becomes aroused, her clitoris, including the associated clitoral bulbs, can expand by anywhere from 50 to 300% in size. While a man's erection is externally visible, a woman's erection is largely internal and invisible to the naked eye. The internal portion of the clitoris actually resembles a wishbone consisting of a shaft and two legs. Part of this structure sits beneath the mons pubis, which explains why many women find pleasure in being touched there. The stimulation indirectly affects the internal clitoral structure. The clitoral bulbs are teardrop-shaped structures full of erectile tissue situated under the labia. This is why some women enjoy genital contact that involves firm pressure beneath the lips. You're actually stimulating these hidden pleasure centers. Here's a crucial anatomical fact that explains so much about female sexual response. The distance between the vaginal opening and the clitoral glands is significant. For most women, this space explains why they require additional clitoral stimulation beyond simple thrusting during intercourse. Research has shown that women whose clitoral glands is more than approximately 2.5 centimeters away from their vaginal opening are statistically less likely to achieve orgasm from intercourse alone. This isn't about effort or technique. It's about biology. Let's venture into controversial territory, the G-spot. Named after German gynecologist Ernst Gräfenberg, who first identified it in the 1940s, this remains one of the most debated aspects of female sexuality. Here's the truth. No conclusive evidence exists to confirm its precise existence as a distinct anatomical feature. Conventionally, the G-spot is described as being located about 1 to 2 inches inside the vaginal opening on the anterior wall. Anecdotal accounts and research have indicated that some vaginas contain a patch of erectile tissue, approximately coin-sized, that becomes spongy upon direct stimulation. But here's where modern science offers an intriguing explanation. Contemporary speculation suggests that the engorged bulbs of the clitoris converge just beneath the vaginal wall surface. This could explain the so-called G-spot sensations. It might not be a separate spot at all, but rather an indirect way of stimulating the internal clitoral structure. The variations in G-spot sensitivity among women might be linked to anatomical differences. Some women possess over 30 paraurethral glands in their urethral sponge, while others have far fewer. There's also a suggested correlation between the size and definition of a woman's G-spot area and her ability to ejaculate. To locate this area, partners can insert fingers and make a beckoning motion. However, here's a crucial point that many people don't realize. The sensation might initially feel like the urge to urinate. This misinterpretation prevents many potential ejaculators from exploring further, as they mistake the swelling sensation before ejaculation for the need to pee. The key is re-education, learning to perceive that urination anxiety as a potentially pleasurable sexual sensation. This involves emptying the bladder beforehand and directly stimulating the area until that familiar urge returns, then learning to embrace rather than resist the sensation. Now, let's dive into the scientific investigation of female ejaculation because the research might surprise you. If you've watched online videos showcasing female ejaculation, you might conclude that some women possess a mysterious gland capable of releasing massive amounts of fluid. But let's think about this logically. For a woman to truly ejaculate in large volumes, the fluid would need to originate from specialized glands. The male prostate releases approximately 5 milliliters of fluid upon ejaculation. In female anatomy, the largest comparable structures are the Skene's glands, located on either side of the urethra and roughly the size of a pea or smaller. These are sometimes called the female prostate, because their secretions contain traces of prostate-specific antigen, PSA, the same protein found in male prostates. Here's the reality. Skene's glands can secrete a small quantity of fluid, likely no more than 1 to 2 milliliters during sexual activity. This could medically be classified as ejaculate, but it doesn't project over distances or involve substantial volumes. One fascinating study monitored 38 women who masturbated to orgasm, with researchers recording pelvic floor muscle contractions to verify climax. None of the participants produced any ejaculate from the vagina or urethra. However, if squirting occurs in roughly 1 in 50 women, about 2% of the population, this sample size might not be large enough to detect the phenomenon. But here's where it gets really interesting. Another study focused specifically on women who claimed to experience squirting. These women emptied their bladders, then were encouraged to reach orgasm while researchers used ultrasound to measure urine levels before arousal, during excitement and post-orgasm. They also collected and analyzed the expelled fluid. The results? The women's bladders filled rapidly during sexual stimulation. While there was urine present before orgasm, the bladders were empty after squirting. Laboratory analysis revealed that the expelled fluid was, in fact, urine. Now, before you feel disappointed, let's explore why this happens because the mechanism is actually quite fascinating. So why do some women expel fluid during intense sexual experiences? There are several compelling theories. One possibility is that during intense orgasms, pelvic floor muscles contract so forcefully that they empty the bladder, synchronizing with the peak pleasure experience. It's like a perfect storm of muscular coordination and intense sensation. Alternatively, an intensified sexual response might dramatically accelerate the rate at which the bladder fills. Think about it. During intense arousal, blood flow increases dramatically throughout the pelvic region, potentially affecting kidney function and urine production. Another factor could be the considerable amount of natural lubrication some women produce during intercourse. This accumulated fluid might be expelled simultaneously during orgasm, creating a dramatic release. Here's a personal account that illustrates the reality of this experience. One individual described their encounter with a woman who regularly ejaculated, sometimes creating intense floods, other times focused squirts. The fluid never left stains or odors upon drying. and the experience was described as extraordinarily memorable and deeply satisfying for both partners. What's particularly interesting is how the psychological component plays into this. The woman's friend, upon seeing evidence of the encounter, expressed relief that she wasn't the only one who experienced this, highlighting how common yet rarely discussed this phenomenon actually is. The variations among women are remarkable. Some never experience ejaculation, while others have done so since the beginning of their sexual lives. Some discover the ability through deep penetration or self-teaching, though not all who attempt succeed. The physical manifestations range from squirting to flooding, with some women needing very specific stimuli to achieve it. The diversity in female ejaculatory experiences is truly remarkable, and understanding this diversity is crucial for anyone interested in exploring this aspect of sexuality. Some women can become so aroused that ejaculation occurs without any physical stimulation of the G-spot area. Oral sex or vibrator use can trigger the response. Others have learned through dedicated self-exploration, finding that combinations of deep penetration and vibrator use are most effective. Physical fitness seems to play a role too. Many women report that weight training and pelvic exercises enhance both the intensity and ease of ejaculatory orgasms. The strength of the pubococcygeus, PC muscle may influence this ability, although it's not a guarantee. Some women with very strong pelvic muscles don't ejaculate at all. The psychological and emotional components are equally important. Many women report that their ability to ejaculate varies dramatically based on their mental state. Relaxation appears to be a key component, with many associating ejaculation with a deeply relaxed state of being. This requirement for relaxation differs significantly from clitoral orgasms, which often involve building and releasing tension. For G-spot-related responses, allowing sensations to rise internally while maintaining a relaxed state seems to be crucial. Interestingly, many women discover their ejaculatory ability later in life. Women in their 40s often associate this discovery with an openness and relaxation that comes with sexual maturity, often requiring more substantial stimulation or specific practices. For some women, ejaculation resembles the male ejaculatory response more closely, with less emphasis on direct vaginal involvement. Simulating intercourse through various forms of stimulation can trigger the response. The amount of fluid varies significantly from woman to woman and even from instance to instance. While some consistently produce small amounts, others ejaculate in substantial volumes. Remarkably, consecutive ejaculations don't necessarily reduce the volume. Subsequent releases can be just as copious as the initial one. Now let's explore some advanced techniques that can enhance intimate experiences, because understanding technique is just as important as understanding anatomy. One particularly effective method involves what I call the pacifier rhythm, a gentle sucking motion similar to how you might suck icing from your finger. This technique provides comfort while building arousal, but timing is crucial. The clitoris is extremely sensitive initially, so any suction applied too early can cause discomfort rather than pleasure. The clitoral suck and pop method involves gently drawing the clitoris into your mouth, then slowly pulling away while maintaining suction until it naturally releases. This motion should be repeated with consistent speed and pressure, gradually intensifying as arousal builds toward climax. Following this with the frenulum delight, a light touch on the clitoral frenulum can create a powerful sequence of sensations. The key is understanding your partner's responses thoroughly, because adjusting intensity without this knowledge can actually diminish rather than enhance arousal. For those interested in more complex approaches, there's the twisted pleasure technique. This involves specific hand positioning and coordination, forming a gun shape with your hand, inserting fingers to target the AFE zone, also known as the A spot, while simultaneously stimulating the clitoral frenulum with your thumb. The rotating wrist motion creates multiple points of stimulation, while incorporating oral techniques. The suck and swirl focuses on maintaining constant gentle suction around the clitoris while using tongue movements to stimulate the glands, frenulum, and surrounding areas. The goal is wide, reaching movements that contact not just the obvious areas but also the spaces beside the clitoral shaft. A variation called popper swirls begins with the established rhythm, then incorporates the pulling away motion while maintaining the swirling tongue movement. This creates anticipation and prolonged sensation, making each movement feel deliberate and highly anticipated. The key to all these techniques is communication, patience, and attention to your partner's responses. Let's address the elephant in the room: the dramatic difference between real female ejaculation and what you see in adult entertainment. After reviewing numerous videos that claim to show female ejaculation, they generally fall into several categories. Many are clearly staged performances where individuals have inserted water or other fluids beforehand, then expelled them for visual effect. Others show fluid emerging from the urethra, which we now understand is likely urine released during intense muscular contractions. In genuine instances involving secretions from the Skene's glands, you typically see only small amounts of whitish fluid, consistent with the actual physiological capacity of these small glands. The pornographic portrayal often employs visual tricks, such as pre-filling the vagina with water until pressure forces a dramatic release. This creates the illusion of massive ejaculation but bears no resemblance to actual female sexual response. This distinction is crucial because these unrealistic portrayals create pressure and false expectations. Real female ejaculation, when it occurs, is much more subtle and variable than these performances suggest. Understanding this difference helps remove the pressure to perform or achieve something that may not be anatomically possible for many women. Instead, the focus can shift to genuine pleasure, connection, and the wide range of normal sexual responses. The psychological component of female sexual response, particularly ejaculation, cannot be overstated. Sexual response is deeply connected to mental and emotional states, and this is especially true for ejaculatory experiences. Many women report that their ability to ejaculate varies dramatically depending on their psychological state. Stress, anxiety, distraction, or pressure to perform can completely inhibit the response, while relaxation, trust, and mental engagement can enhance it significantly. The importance of removing performance pressure cannot be emphasized enough. When ejaculation becomes a goal or expected outcome, the very pressure to achieve it can prevent it from happening. This creates a frustrating cycle where the desire to experience something actually prevents its occurrence. Instead, the most beneficial approach is to allow exploration to be enjoyable and pressure-free. This means focusing on sensation, pleasure, and connection rather than specific outcomes. The mind-body connection also explains why many women discover ejaculatory ability later in life. Sexual confidence, self-knowledge, and the ability to communicate needs often develop with experience and maturity. The relaxation and openness that come with this development create optimal conditions for exploring different types of sexual response. Trust between partners plays a crucial role too. The vulnerability required for intense sexual experiences, including potential ejaculation, requires a deep level of comfort and communication. For those interested in exploring ejaculatory potential, here's some practical guidance that prioritizes pleasure over performance. First, if you have a vulva and want to explore this possibility, consider using a G-spot stimulator to experiment with different levels of pressure on the anterior vaginal wall. Remember, the initial sensation might feel like the need to urinate. This is normal and not necessarily a reason to stop. Empty your bladder beforehand to eliminate anxiety about actual urination. This allows you to explore the sensations without worry, and helps distinguish between the urge to urinate and the swelling sensation that can precede ejaculation. Focus on relaxation rather than tension. Unlike clitoral stimulation, which often involves building tension toward release, G-spot-related responses seem to require a more relaxed, receptive state. Allow sensations to build internally rather than forcing them. If you're exploring with a partner, avoid creating pressure for them to achieve ejaculation. It should never be presented as a goal or mandatory achievement. Instead, approach it as one of many possible expressions of pleasure. Communication is essential. Talk about sensations, comfort levels, and preferences. What works for one person may not work for another, and what works one time may not work the next. Remember that anatomical differences might determine ejaculatory ability. Just as there are variations in all aspects of genital anatomy, the capacity for ejaculation varies similarly. This isn't a reflection of sexual capability or satisfaction, it's simply biological diversity. As we wrap up our exploration of female ejaculation and sexual response, one truth stands out. There's no one-size-fits-all version of pleasure. Some women ejaculate, some don't. Both are normal, valid, and worthy of celebration. But here's what might surprise you. Even scientists can't fully agree on where it comes from, what it means, or why it happens at all. That mystery? That's part of what makes human sexuality so endlessly fascinating. Want the full breakdown? From myths and mechanics to what the latest research actually reveals. Download the Skoob app now to hear the complete episode and uncover the science and the stigma behind one of sexuality's most misunderstood phenomena. This has been Sexual Chemistry. Subscribe for more conversations that bring curiosity, knowledge, and connection to the bedroom and beyond.